walking up the west wing of Frank Long School. This is room 11. This is the room where our first cancer person died. That was Mary Chavius. We've had 5 people diagnosed with cancer in this classroom. This is the second room on the left, first part of the new building. This is where we lost one of our reading teachers to cancer. This is room 106. I'm walking here. This is the room I taught in. This is the room I taught in and was diagnosed with cancer. And at least 5 other people were diagnosed with cancer here.
Well, really, this has been a saga that's been going on a long time. There's a landfill that's theoretically 276 feet high. We believe it's much higher, right next to the school. So Frank P. Long School is in the shadow of the largest municipal landfill left on Long Island.
The first years of teaching at Frank Long, there was a strong odor coming from the landfill. And this is 1980s for me. And we used to run from the back parking lot to the door with our shirts over our faces like this.
The landfill was actually established after the community was there. So some people say to me, well, they knew they were locating next to a landfill when they're referring to community members or even people at the school, and that's wrong. The school and the community were there first, and then, unfortunately, the town of Brookhaven located a landfill that at first was tiny back in the 70s and then grew and grew.
As the landfill has grown, the odor has grown. And I started in Brookhaven. So I decided to transfer to Frank P. Long in 2008. And at that time, colleagues of mine in Brookhaven said to me, "Are you sure you want to go to Frank P. Long?" There were already concerns about people's health.
High levels of autoimmune diseases, thyroid issues, rashes, things like that.
Respiratory, sinus.
So,
vertigo.
Yeah, vertigo. We'd have a large group of students who would have bloody noses. They'd suffer from headaches, stomach aches. We were always sending them to the nurse.
Yeah. I have kids this year that have said to me they have headaches. They don't feel well. They have stomach aches. They want to, lay down. I have a student this year who has had rashes on her arm that has now kind of advanced to downright hives.
You want to see all the candy? We got worms and Jolly Ranchers.
Oh, Jolly Ranchers. Oh, can I have a Jolly Rancher? I love Jolly Ranchers.
Basically, since she started over at Frank P. Long, started off with her getting gastritis out of nowhere. We had to deal with that. And then that went away. And then towards the end of the year, she started complaining a little bit about headaches, but that was in June, and then she was out. And, she hasn't had any issues when she's not in school. It's only when she's in school, and then school started again September. And she was fine for, I'd say, a good 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then it just hit her like a ton of bricks, these severe headaches.
I haven't been able to go to gymnastics because, when I come home from school, it's usually hurting really bad. And I didn't go to gymnastics for a week, and then I just went back on Thursday. And the first event we did, my head started throbbing, and I was like, oh my god. Like in the summer, I could stand for as long as I want until my legs started hurting and I couldn't stand anymore. But now if I stand up for more than probably an hour, it starts to, my head starts to hurt and I start to get nauseous.
Yeah, my son started having problems last year when he was in 5th grade. And he started with gastritis that they didn't know where it came from. And then he had vertigo, mysterious rashes, and nobody could figure out what was happening.
We have friends in our class that will be like, do you guys smell that? And they'll be like, yeah. And we'll be like, it's the dumps. And they'll be like, it's making me really nauseous. Yeah, my friend, she started getting headaches now, and she's starting feeling sick a lot. And it smells worse when it's raining hard. When the other day when it was raining a lot, you could smell it a lot.
It was just a couple weeks ago. We were sitting in our room, and my room is right next to the west parking lot and towards the back of the building where the landfill is, and my windows were closed, the doors were closed, and the stink permeated in our room. The kids were freaking out. They were like, it smells like farts in here. It smells like poop in here. What is that smell? And they're all like, oh my God, they're covering their nose. And
I sit one desk away from my friends.
she sits
in front of me. Yeah, and then I sit in my row. I sit this boy, and then I sit next, and then there's my friend, and I constantly talk to her to try and get my mind off the smell. Because if I can't, then I can't focus on what I'm trying to do. Yeah, and then we get in trouble. Yeah.
Because you're talking to each other in class?
Yeah.
I had to stop my lesson. I had to get on the computer. I had to follow protocol and email the people that I had to email to let them know what was going on.
Meanwhile, you're supposed to be instructing your students.
And it's happened several times this year where I've had to stop my instruction because of the smell inside my classroom with windows closed.
My cluster would go outside a lot because we would do wiffle ball tournaments, kickball tournaments, and sometimes we wouldn't be able to go outside for recess or go outside for the wiffle ball tournament because the school couldn't go outside because the smell was so strong. And then other times we would go outside and it would just smell terrible. Even if it was it rained the day before, we wouldn't be able to go outside because when the water hit the dump, it just kind of made it smell even worse than it normally does. I had never had a migraine headache before I started at Frank P. Long. Well, I would be in school, everything would be fine, and then out of nowhere I would get this major migraine. Sometimes I would have to call home. They would last the whole day, every day, 5 days a week I was in school. And it lasts over the summer, they faded, and then when I went back to Frank P. Long for 5th grade, they came right back. It would make me dizzy, and sometimes if I was reading, I wouldn't be able to see the words clearly, so it would take extra time to do my work.
My son was a pretty healthy child. He was one of my 3 children. He's the one who didn't get sick. He started to actually have some tics when he was in 4th grade, and then they went away over the summer. Then he came back in 5th grade, and in probably December of 5th grade, he started to get very nauseous. Then it progressed that he would look to the side, and he would just throw up. I had a nurse come over and she said, this can't be going on. He started walking, he would throw up. He lost almost 30 pounds.
It put a lot of stress because I felt like I had to finish my schoolwork. I didn't want to stay home because then I would have to catch up on more work that I missed. It was just sometimes disappointing because I couldn't. My friends would say, hey, are you going to soccer in tomorrow? And I would say, no, I don't feel good, I can't go.
When she was in 1st grade, she broke her arm, literally, and wouldn't go to the hospital because she didn't want to miss school. So I would be like, my arm hurts, I can't go to school today. But so she's incredibly dedicated. So even with not feeling well, she went to school.
Boston, Pennsylvania, upstate New York City, all of Long Island. I've probably seen over 100 doctors, many different alternative specialists. The only thing they can come up with, he was exposed to something. So he has been homeschooled, and he had been trying to get trials back into school. But the trials haven't really worked so well because he does get sick. He was a very, very active child. He has zip lines and skateboards and He was walking on stilts. He was trying to learn to ride a unicycle. He loves to snowboard, and he sits on a couch now.
So I'm walking out to the courtyard. So this is the first garden. It was for Mary Chavius, dedicated to her. It's called the Starlight Starbright Garden. The reason it's named for that is while Mary was getting chemo treatment, the staff decided to buy a star, name a star after her. The next garden we come to is Rose Garden. It's named after Rowetta Lyons, who was a reading teacher in the building. She too has a slab that was at one time on a post. And again, this is deteriorating. And the slab fell off. And I'm moving to the next memorial garden. This garden is for Clovis Campbell. Again, we have the slab that was created for her. About 2 summers ago, I came out here and I redid the slabs because you could barely read them. We have 35 teachers that have been diagnosed with cancers. Either that they are currently been diagnosed, or they are still teaching, or we have retirees that have developed cancer since then. My situation at Frank Long, I was sick a lot before this. I would lose my voice a couple of times a year. I had one bronchial infection after another. I started getting leg pains in my right leg where it would make me lay awake at night crying. So I went to see, I had to go see my cardiologist, and he sent me to a great neurologist. He did a brain scan and he did a upper MRI. He called me right away and said, there's something large in your left lung and you need to go right away and get a CAT scan and an X-ray. I knew I was in trouble when the tech wouldn't even look at me. My knees went out from under me because up on the screen is a picture of my left lung with this softball in the middle of it. That's just what it looked like, a softball. And he told us it was definitely cancer. And I was totally shocked because I don't smoke, didn't smoke. By the time they went in, it was 6 centimeters. So they had to take the whole lung. I was out of work for 5 months. And I have to tell you, that was the most scary part of walking out of Frank Long that day before the surgery with my mother, because I closed that door of that classroom, didn't know if I was coming back. It was 12 years this November. There was 4 of us that got lung cancer at Frank Long. I'm the only survivor. When I got diagnosed, like I said, it blew me out of the water, and I was still looking for answers for it. Did I think it was the landfill at the time? I suspected it. I had no proof. And people thought I was crazy when I said something about it.
It used to be a municipal landfill, which means regular household garbage and construction and demolition debris. Then we moved on Long Island and other places to incineration. And so the ash from the incineration became the dumping material of choice. At one point, they even were dumping New York City's sewage sludge in the landfill. The town, believe it or not, had a contract with New York City for $5 million a year for 3 consecutive years. And the town told us at that time, we can't stop dumping the sewer sludge. It'll blow a hole in the budget. Anecdotally, there's all sorts of rumors. I will give you one. I have been supplied photos of plastic bags with the hazardous logo on it, skull and crossbone, from people who have worked at the landfill in the past, and we were told there were asbestos in those bags. The landfill is permitted to take what's called non-friable asbestos, as long as they keep maps of where they bury it. So we filed for Freedom of Information request with the DEC in the town, asking for the maps of where the asbestos is buried. And we were told there are no maps because no such material has ever been buried at the landfill. The school district actually, after complaints from students, parents, and teachers, decided they would test the air in the school, which on some days is terrible. And instead of testing the air on those terrible days, what's called an odor event, in other words, when the air stinks, that's when you want to test the air. You want to see what's in the air when it stinks. The school hired a company that decided to test the air during a bright, sunny day, no odor, crystal clear. And so the samples came out great. And they said, we have great air. In fact, they told us they have better air at that school than other schools.
Everyone smells and tastes it. Also, depending on the way the wind shifts, you can get hit with it strong and then the wind will change and it won't be as strong and it'll change back. So you definitely can tell where it's coming from.
When the air testing was done, the wind was coming from, not from the dump, it was coming from the opposite direction. I'm like, well, that was convenient. They're like, well, we can't help what testing is. So a dry day in June, when the kids, you're supposed to have it with the kids in school, it's supposed to be like, they didn't do that. And with the wind coming from the opposite direction. The viruscience who did the testing took 15-minute samples versus what usual standard industry was an hour sample. They only used 15-minute samples. They also didn't use the sample, the guidelines that they're going for. There's no regulations for children. Children have nothing. The levels are associated to grown men. So we know that that's just ridiculous. We wouldn't give a dosage of medication that we give to a 200-pound man to a 80-pound child. And that's what they're sort of letting this happen. So the children are much more vulnerable than anybody else.
We know that the odors are being caused by what's called hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide carries with it other volatile organic chemicals or toxic chemicals when it drifts from a landfill or any other odor source into a building or into a community. So our question is, in addition to the hydrogen sulfide, which by itself is toxic, what other chemicals are we being exposed to? After a couple of years of us really putting pressure on the town and also on the DEC required the town to come up with some type of air sampling. I think the town rused the day they did this. So what they did was they got these, what they're called canisters, and they sucked the air in. And they trained one member of the community that lives next to the landfill and one of the teachers at Frank P. Long School. And they said, during odor events, we want you to pull the plug on the canister, it sucks in the air, and then it seals it. When the community member and the teacher took those air samples during odor events or when it stunk, they had to call the consultant, and the consultant would go to the landfill and test the air at the landfill. And what they were doing was they were looking what they said for a fingerprint. Or were they finding the same odors at the landfill that they were finding in the school and the community?
So this one was the one collected by Joe. One was collected at Frank P. Long School and the other one at the top of the landfill. And again, VOCs were detected on both. And finally, this is the one collected by Joe again at Frank P. Long School, and there were VOCs detected on both samples.
So the conclusion of this was that low levels of VOCs were detected, and on-site and off-site detections are correlating, so indicating that the landfill to be the primary source.
We met with the DEC, several of the teachers, community members, myself. The DEC told us, and this is their words, that they denied later, but we have it on tape, there was a fingerprint, the hydrogen sulfide, as well as some of the low levels of benzene getting into the school, getting into the community, were in fact originating at the landfill. The synergistic effect, which means the multiple chemicals, so maybe it's a little benzene, a little toluene, a little hydrogen sulfide, a little bit of something else, all of that's effects on our bodies, particularly children's body, is the great unknown.
So we're probably just over a mile away from the school, maybe a little bit closer.
So you get the odor from the dump here?
Yeah, we get it really bad.
Okay.
I remember a couple of months ago, I got up to leave for work, and I leave at like 5 in the morning. And it was so bad that you could taste it. And it was like rotten eggs and burning electrical mixed together. And no matter what you did, you couldn't get rid of it. We've seen brown water a lot more. We've also noticed issues where, you get patches of extremely dry skin. And the only thing I can think of is when we have these incidences, it's more pronounced. It comes out a lot more.
The area surrounding the school is actually kind of diverse. Some of the areas are quite economically depressed. Some of the areas are minority communities, and some of the areas are working class. So it's very mixed. And I find in my work that many times those areas that are a little lower income have less of a voice in government. Let's be honest. They're not putting a 276 mountain of garbage in a rich community on the North Shore of Long Island, are they?
We're in Bellport, and we're going to ride and walk down to my school.
All right, ready? I'm going to let you go. Give me a high five. No more candy.
That's what we have to do in gym. We have to go.
Yeah.
I'm in cluster C, so it's basically just straight down that hallway right there. 2 more months.
And then what happens?
And then I go to the middle school.
And how has your experience been here?
I like the teachers and the stuff that we do here, but where it is, it's not in a good place to be.
Well, why do you say that?
Because the dump's like right there.
We live close enough to where we deal with it every day. So, once we're not as close, hopefully with her not being within this proximity, it should help, because when she's not in school, she's fine. Headache and everything goes away. You hear some people, and they say, yeah, my kid comes home not feeling too good. But they're home, and on the weekends when they're not in the area, they're fine. And then you have people who, like Adriel and others, who live even closer. It's 24/7, 365.
That's the dump. You can see it from the playground and from the field in here. And it's kind of just like a mountain, so I call it Mount Trashmore.
And what's this part of the school?
Oh, that's the cafeteria right there.
So every day for lunch, you get to sit basically in front of the dump.
Yep.
Zoom tight. See, we're close to the dump, and she's already sneezing. She was fine until we got here.
Let go of me.
I think to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a courtyard that is closed in, that have old oil tanks underneath it. Was it cesspools underneath it too? Three cesspools.
And a large oil tank, at least 2 oil tanks there.
Right. I think that's a big Band-Aid.
The school board, instead of trying to like fix, like stop the dumps from like pouring chemicals in there, they're trying to change the school. Like they're changing the courtyard so like so the smell doesn't get in school. That doesn't help because you can still like smell it.
Yeah, the courtyard is I would say, is a thorn in Dr. Gianni's side, in the sense that there are at least 4 to 5 memorial sections in there for people who have died of cancer. Dr. Gianni said that he referred to it as looks like tombstones out there. But that's our way of, recognizing our people, who passed away.
So this is the new plan for the courtyard. This is what it looks like now, and of the building, and this is what they're looking at. According to the central office and people in power here, they are going to memorialize our deceased teachers by providing plaques. I'm going to oversee this and make sure that our dear departed friends are not forgotten.
Mary and I moved into this house in September 1974. Ever since then, our kids were born. They lived here. Mary and I had her bedroom. That's where she died, was right in that room there. My daughter lives in that room. That's Mary in her wedding dress, and me and my dashiki. Most of the stuff that she had is still here. The only stuff that I got rid of was her clothes. No, she had professional clothes. And it was a place where you could take it and donate it to other people that needed professional clothes but couldn't afford them. So I got rid of the clothes, and that's pretty much it. I met Mary in the Bellport Teachers Bowling League in 1971, I think.
Was she a good bowler?
No, and neither was I. And I still bowl in that league, and I still can't bowl. She was quiet, but strong. She voiced her opinion. She was a very independent woman. She came here in '69. Okay, she taught in Frank P. Long. Then she went to Brookhaven for a couple of years and then came back to Frank P. Long. So she's pretty much spent all of her time at Frank P. Long. She loved it. She loved teaching, and the whole entities that went with it. She loved every bit of it. She never really talked about the smells or anything of that nature, but at one point, she went to the doctor, and the doctor told her that she needed to see an oncologist. And she was basically diagnosed with ovarian cancer. The guy gave us a number. He said, out of 25 people, 5 people survives a year or more. And if you were one of the 5 people, then a couple people will end up cancer-free. The others will not, from the time she was diagnosed. She retired, but she never lived long enough to get a check. My kids, each one of them, saw her before she died. And they were, in college, they were old kids, and they were home, and they would go out, come in. I think they came in 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, separate times. And they'd walk in, and they always say hello because I kept her at home, and I took care of her. And they'd come in at 2 in the morning, speak to her. That particular night, each one of them left the room crying. Next morning, she was gone. Just like that. But they knew. I'm the only dumb one that didn't. I woke up the next morning, she was gone.
Did she ever discuss what she thought might have been the cause at that time?
No. And as we asked the doctor, what causes it? And at that particular time in life, back in the 90s, it just happened. As far as we knew, that's what the oncologist told us.
My mentor and my best friend at the time, Mary Chavius, was the first cancer death that we had. We never even thought of that, that it was the landfill or anything. But it started to make sense.
A lot of it was in hindsight, because at the time, although it feels like it should be so common sense, if it smells badly outside and your daughter's getting headaches, it could be related. I don't think at the time that many people thought it had anything to do with the school.
It wasn't until we spoke at a board meeting about the latest fatality that we had, Gail Williams, that we learned that there were students in our building that were sick.
How this came to be that any connections were made is that there happened to be a parent who happened to be at a board meeting, who happened to hear teachers discussing their concerns. That parent had a child that was ill. We happened to speak to that parent, and that's when Sky said, well, don't you remember that I wasn't feeling well?
And that was the piece for us that we couldn't ever find because, number one, the kids are only with us for 2 years. And we're not privy to anybody's health information. So, that was always in the back of our mind if we could find, if we could find out about the kids.
It wasn't until the parents started talking about it that any knowledge came of it. Everyone thought it was their child. It was just this isolated incident. I was thinking it's her age, or, you come up with a million reasons that it could be. And then when you start putting pieces together, it's upsetting.
Even with that monstrous mountain of chemicals and things that have been dumped there from 1971 or 73, did I think that? I was thinking, it must be raggrass or ragweed or something.
I feel horribly guilty. Actually it gets me choked up because Sky's never given me a reason to ever doubt her, anything she's ever said. Now I'm getting choked up. But she would come home sick almost every day. And as a parent of a almost middle schooler, I'm thinking, go to school, you're fine, drink more water, and I'm putting it back on her.
This has been a long battle for us. We've been standing by ourselves for a long time with this. We have spoken to Dr. Gianni behind closed doors as union representatives. We have spoken at board meetings numerous times.
The town, right? We used to meet with the town, with Adrian's group. We used to meet with the town and the DC regularly. In the last couple of years, they stopped meeting with us. I feel the deeper we get, the deeper we dig, the more we find out, the less they want to talk to us.
Right.
I have a question about the community surrounding Frank P. Long and the Brookhaven landfill. There's been many sicknesses that have been at Frank P. Long and the surrounding community. My son happens to be one of them. There's other teachers that they're dying every 2 years. They're getting cancers. Lots of kids with mysterious rashes.
First, let me just say that teacher attendance, and this is a credit to the teachers.
Go for it.
This is
for that.
This is a credit to the teachers at Frank P. Long has the best attendance record of the 6 schools.
The teachers' attendance, did you take into effect the Family Leave Act? Because a lot of them, when they're sick and dying of cancer, they have to take extended time off. It can't be factored into their attendance. The other thing is, so all these children are getting sick, then
I assume you're getting to a question.
Oh.
If there was a health problem that could be attributed to the landfill, not only myself, but every member of my board, regardless of political party, would move to resolve that problem immediately, including speeding up the closing of that landfill.
Well, that's good to hear, because there is.
When we're told that, I'm glad you have an opinion.
No, who's
I
going
have
to,
to,
who's going to help us with this?
like the school board, and I'll just finish with this, and I think I've answered your question.
No, you didn't. That's the problem.
Well, that's your opinion, ma'am. I think I've answered exactly what our position is.
You told me your
Like-
position on closing the landfill. But I
What?
asked you what you're going to do for the people in the community now that are sick. And you didn't tell me that. You didn't answer my question.
Now, we did speak to our state assemblyman, Dean Murray, who had told us that he had called the superintendent of our school as well as the president of the board of our school, and he had presented them with an opportunity to relocate Frank P. Long to an unused school in a neighboring district that would not cost the taxpayers any money. And according to Assemblyman Dean Murray, he said that the superintendent and the board president denied that offer and said they already decided to keep the school open.
How come our community was not presented with the option that was given by the state of New York to relocate Frank P. Long last fall at no cost to taxpayers to a school in Sachem that is not being used? I know this option because I sat in the office of our state assemblyman, Dean Murray, again seeking answers to things that didn't make sense.
But I have to say I find even more disturbing is what Nancy had just stated before, because I too was at that meeting, as were some others. Dean Murray expressed his surprise and confusion of why our district did not take the state up on their offer to pay to relocate the school. Dean Murray reached out to the district and encouraged them to take the funding, which he also said that he stated, this does not mean that you have to admit there's a problem, but just as a precautionary measure.
Next up is Ms. Huffine.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's just a couple points that have to be addressed, and I just...
About the untruths of
How do you even know?
That's what we heard from Ms. Mr. Assemblyman Murray. I guess my question would be, I want to confirm...
Oh, my God.
Now, and I think we can answer this question, that at no time did Assemblyman Murray contact the district and say that there were state funds available to us to move the building.
That is correct.
Okay, that is never said to you, Dr. Gianni?
You're out of order.
And the super, and I'm sure that it gets to get order, and that I changed the things?
Are out of order.
I'm not out of order.
You're out of order.
You all are out of order. Everyone's a liar, but you.
Thank you. That is true.
Everyone else lied with it?
Oh my God.
No, I said, no, that we have not lied. That is true.
Okay, then Dean Murray, I'll tell him that you said he was a liar.
You don't have to bother. I will. I already sent him a message.
I checked with him to make sure.
Thank you.
My opinion of why the superintendent wouldn't relocate the school is he said the school was safe, so by moving it, I would be a little contradictory. Although I in my heart of hearts, hope that he truly believes that, because to knowingly know that the school is sick, as I've also heard it referred to, and to send staff, it's his staff that he's sending, his employees, that he sends the notices out when someone passes, and to send people into that environment and children into that environment and know that there's an issue, I can't imagine that somebody would do that.
I've said this from the beginning. I feel that it's all government protecting government. And I don't see that changing. I don't see it changing. I think that any justice we get is going to be the justice that we seek.
The highest responsibility of government is to protect the health and safety of the public. It's not to just dump their garbage in the middle of the community. That's not the highest priority of government. So I think the implication is, and the fear of government, is that they would be somehow be held responsible.
The fact that our own people that live amongst us, who we elected to the Board of Ed, and live in this district, and have children in this district, and know the story, don't support us. Don't come forward and say, there is a problem here, and we know it, and we're behind you.
Our greatest hope is that there's government accountability. And you know, people say to me all the time, well, you know, people are already sick. You can't move, you can't travel back in time. And you're right, we can't undo what's been done, but we could prevent it from happening from others. And the way we prevent it from happening to others is that we hold government accountable. And we hold government to the highest standard, as they should be.
You put this landfill in a community where there is a school and human lives. Now you have to be held accountable for fixing it.
Right.
And that means closing it. That means
moving the school.
Moving the school to a different location without putting that burden on the taxpayers of the district.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, move the teachers out, move the students out, build a new school. That works. But that's just for the kids and the teachers. What about everyone else living in that little corner where the school is?
I just think it's disappointing to know that there's other kids that have to go through this school that don't know about it, and that there's a whole neighborhood that's right by the school, which is right by the dump, and you don't know what they're going through. And everyone's fighting for the school, the school, the school, the school. But what about the neighborhood that's right there? What about why aren't we fighting for them too?
I mean, we can move kids around as much as we want, but especially with us living here, granted she's not in the school, we're still directly affected by it. So, I mean, I would like, first off, to find out what's going on, you know. It's time someone actually gives us real information, you know, they do real testing and we figure out exactly what's causing the issue with the kids.
First off, children get some more rights, and that the laws are put in place, that we have appropriate regulations for children of what a child can tolerate. Because if those laws were in place, maybe we wouldn't have to be fighting so hard.
And let's get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Well, these tests, these little bitty tests that we did in the middle of the summer, when it's really not the best time to do a test, comes out acceptable levels, to then turn around and say, this school is fine.
Yeah, and I have a message. The message is, those tests can say that that building is safe. But damn it, those tests results are not going to bring back the dead. They're not going to make people well, and I'm not getting my lung back. So there's something wrong here. Stand up with us and help us out here.
I go and talk to her every once in a while. I say, help me out with your grandson. So I have a conversation with her like she's here. I'd be scared to death if she said something back, but I talk to her, and I put flowers and things on her, plant stuff on her grave. You never forget. You move on, but you never forget.